Today on Off the Hinges, relax, pour yourself a drink, and unwind from your week as I answer your questions and share stories about this week's trade. I'm joined by a special guest, and I have my whiskey in hand. I'm so glad you made it. Are you ready? Let's slide into the vault. I'm so excited to see you today. To all of our guests and listeners, welcome back to the vault. Welcome to Friday. I'm exploring Zest with one of the most life-giving and enthusiastic people I have ever met, but especially here in Norway. Her hair is rad. She looks more Norwegian and Viking than the majority of people I've met here. Oh, I'm so excited for you to meet her. So I'm going to take a sip of my drink. Please introduce yourself to all of our guests.
Hi, everyone. I am Vibeke Sefland. They call me Vibi. And I am Norwegian. I live in the northern part of Norway now, enjoying the snow, the cold, everything. I am working at the Allied Training Center up here. So we're helping all the Allied forces coming to Norway to get the training that they need to be ready to serve here. I have been working at Center of Excellence Cold Weather Operation. That's where I met you some 2-3 years ago. And I, in all my free time, of course, I'm all over the mountains. I climbed the 8,000-meter peaks, which it's like in feet. I think mountains about 26,000 feet, something like that. There are 14 of them in the world, and I have climbed 8 of them. I've also climbed what's called the 7 summits, which is the highest peak on each of the 7 continents. So I use all my time outside, outdoor, when I'm not at work. But my work is also a lot outdoor. So
Yeah. God, I don't know of any people that can match that introduction. You're a rock star. I'm so glad to be talking to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us. But like I told you, so up front for the listeners and those who are watching, I have to give the disclaimer because yes, I'm in the Marine Corps. Vibi is in the Norwegian Army. And just a disclaimer that whatever we say, any thoughts or comments or assertions, it's our own. This is a Josh and a Vibi talk. So none of this is endorsed or supported by the U.S. Marine Corps, Department of Defense, or the Norwegian Army, or any of our national services. This is just two friends having a really fun chat, and I'm so glad you can join us. So, right out of the gates, what are you thankful for this week?
This week, it has actually come to my mind how thankful I am for my health, both physical and mental. I have this week actually experienced some of my friends who have been told that they have illnesses. One mentally, and one who have got cancer. So you get a wake up call, and I am so thankful that I am healthy. That's really something this week. We should be all the time, actually.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm going to second that because, like I shared with you, this week on Thursday, we had the funeral service for our dear friend Elizabeth Eikeland, who was in the Norwegian Army Public Affairs Office at Joint Warfare Center. She had been a guest on an earlier episode last November, and she was just full of love and energy and life. And God, she was such a pissant. She was just so bold. And when I think of Elizabeth, I just think a life that was filled with a perfect blend of courage and compassion in everything that she did.
Yeah.
So much like you, I'm thankful for health, but I'm just thankful for life and that the opportunity that you are breathing oxygen today. I'm breathing oxygen. We're healthy. We're coherent. We can share a conversation and just build a nice legacy to leave to my children and people that might come behind us to talk about things that I think really matter in life. So appreciating how short life is and how sort of tragic and traumatic of news it was to lose Elizabeth, That's why we do these things, because really we can appreciate zest in life
It
with the
is.
appreciation of it's short and it's very fleeting. So I'm just really thankful for you and for life and for really good friends.
Oh, thank you. I am so thankful too, because it comes to your mind how short this life actually is when we are faced with tragedies like that, like losing
Yeah.
friends or friends getting severe illnesses. Then
Mhm.
like, we never know what lies ahead of us. We never
Yeah.
know if there will be a car crash or whatever. We don't know
Sure.
it. So we have to embrace the day. We have to embrace what we have now. And when we also have good health, oh my goodness, we have to be so happy.
Go climb some 8,000s. Come on. Goodness. Yeah.
Just do that.
Yeah.
Climb
Just one. Or maybe people are crazy and beasts like you and can do all of them. Who knows? Oh,
No,
yeah.
we have to find a passion in life. What, because I always say that if you find the right path and the way to walk down, you will not get so many speed bumps, if you know what I
Mm,
mean. You will not like be faced with problems and how to solve this. If you find your path, it's filled with joy, because you're actually doing what you like, and then you are filled with energy, and then you just like spread that to the environment around you, and then it's
yeah.
everything gets just easier.
Right.
You know how they say that you get more of what you focus on. If you
Mm,
focus on the positive way and the positive in life, you actually feel that positivity, and it gets more positive.
I know. That's really good. I was raised with the idea of whatever things are good and lovely, just think about those things.
Yeah.
And the way that you think actually influences the way that you act and feel and connect with people and nature and everything around you. It really starts, I think, in your mindset. And I
Oh,
love that positive mindset that you share and spread because it's so true.
but it's absolutely, because if you focus on something, you make it stronger. Like
Mm.
I remember when I was tiny little, and I was maybe like, oh, I have stomach ache. I have stomach ache, blah, blah, blah. My mom always said, do you think it gets better when you're complaining? I, I love it.
Oh, I know. That's so good. It
In,
reminds me of there's a movie called Bridge of Spies, and there's an American actor, Tom Hanks, that plays in that. And it's
Mhm,
about spies many, many years ago. It's not a true story, but it's based on things that probably happened. And there is a spy from the other side of the fence, let's say, not the American spy. But when he gets caught and they're investigating into what's happening and they're questioning him, and he always stays very calm.
mhm.
And someone asks him, like, aren't you worried or aren't you concerned? And he looks at them and he says, would it help?
Oh, that
And
is
then they
so.
just look at him. So in his whole mindset, even though like in the picture of the movie, he's maybe the bad guy, but he
Mhm.
even had this very even demeanor where he didn't stress out. He didn't obsess over things. Or if he was, he wasn't letting other people see that. He just had a very calm, collected nature. And when people questioned him, like, how can you be like that? And
Yeah,
it seems like your world should be falling apart. And he was just like, well, would it help if I was? And that
I
was a really I don't really pull too much from a lot of movies sometimes, but I was like, that's a really powerful scene to have that response in the face of a lot of adversity.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah, it's
We
so
can
good.
like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what are you learning this week?
I learned this week, it has been a lot of conversations with many people with very different opinions. And what I learned is that to communicate with people with other opinions, I, I, I learn so much. I don't have to agree with them, but to just discuss and always listen is better than talking. Then I learn more.
Oh,
So I have been listening a lot this week, and I have learned a lot with just listening to people, both some that I agree with, but also a lot of people that I don't agree with. But just listening to them I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about how I can respond in a better way. Because I if you listen more than you speak, you get wiser, so that you can reply with a more content reply, if you know what I mean. I have
Yeah.
more fruit for thoughts for them when I
Hmm.
reply. So it has been some difficult conversations, but I have listened more than I've been speaking. And when I then have opened my mouth, it has maybe been some thoughts, some fruit for thoughts.
Yeah. That's really good. And I think for me, if I'm not maybe completely well versed in a certain topic, or if someone has a really good perspective that maybe I know I don't agree with it,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
they're very passionate about it, I've found that unless it's an emergent thing where I have to give a response or there must be an immediate decision, sometimes it's good and best to just say, I really appreciate your perspective.
Yeah,
And I would like a little bit of time to sit with that and reflect on what you said and really take some meaning from it. So not every conversation has to be a clapback or trying to make a point. I love that you can just sit there patiently, quietly, and attentively to really try and learn their perspective, not to agree with it, but maybe even to just better understand your own beliefs and to call those into question to
yeah,
really understand what they mean for you. That's a
exactly.
beautiful thing to learn. Yeah.
Because when you get when I hear and listen to them and get their perspective, I can better understand that they actually have that meaning, that they have that view of things.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
And I've also learned that when people, regardless of their native language or the culture they come from, if someone, even if it seems a little bit hostile or they're very passionate or aggressive with the way they're presenting it, if someone takes the time to verbally communicate something to me, especially when it's face to face, that means that is important to them to communicate. So even if I don't like it or agree with it, I really respect the fact that they took the time to communicate that and
I,
communication. And we
I
had this very episode and discussion with Elizabeth because that was what her topic was when we shared. And
yeah,
she said communication comes from the Latin to share. So to share means a give and a take. And so you really have to listen and absorb and be present with those people who maybe you don't agree with
yeah.
to appreciate their people. And this is the way they view the world and honor the fact that they shared with you. So that's a really beautiful thing.
And I think we could get so much further in this world and in our tiny little community also, if we just listen, communicate, and have the
Hmm.
respect. I think one of the words you used there was respect. And
Hmm.
that is respect for both others'
Yeah.
opinions and our own opinion. But that
Hmm.
means also that we have to communicate. And with communication, as you said, it's not only speaking, it is also
Hmm.
listening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So before we jump into the rest of the questions, last one that I always start with. How do you hope to grow as you rest and reflect heading into this weekend?
That's a good question.
Thanks. I agree.
Yeah, I would try to embrace some challenges that I have got this week.
Uh-huh.
Um, and some that is actually one of my friends. She has challenged me to now focus on some of the tasks that I have had, because I am, as you know me, all over the place, helping everybody, and not actually prioritizing time to do the task that I set for myself. So I will embrace that challenge and actually use time to get something done, and that is one very very important task to me, and a good task. That is actually to set up and plan for something called medical tracking that I'm going to
Hmm.
have this summer in June in
Hmm.
Pakistan. So I'm traveling to Pakistan in the middle of June to have something that I call medical tracking. I have recruited 2 Norwegian doctors, and they will come
Wow.
with me. And in Pakistan, I am on board with an organization called Ascend, Leadership Through Athletics.
Hmm.
That is an organization that are educating girls in poor rural areas. We started in Afghanistan, in Kabul, where
Hmm.
I also was one of their main instructors, and I guided actually the first Afghan female to the highest mountain in Afghanistan. The mountain is called Noshak, and it's 7,000, oh my God, 7,496 meters, nearly 7,500
Wow.
meters.
Wow.
Yeah. So we made a little world history there in 2018.
Yeah, you did.
Yes, yes. Way for Hanifa, the first Afghan female to the top of the mountain in Afghanistan. And
That's so
also,
brilliant.
I know I was so proud to be a part of it because it was a women empowerment project.
Right.
Absolutely. And I'm
Right.
still with that organization, and I'm still one of the main trainees or main instructors for them.
Hmm.
And now I have been a part of training a group of Pakistani girls in Skardu. That's a little town up in the northern part of Pakistan, close to the
Hmm.
big mountains. And I am going up there, and 4 of the senior students, they will come with me and learn how to do this medical tracking. That means planning, organization, and going
Right.
out to even more poor and rural areas where we are treating. We're setting up temporary medical camps for a couple of
Hmm.
days, treating all the poor, the women, children, all of those who have wounds, yeah, medical issues.
Wow.
So that will be one of my things to do this weekend, to do the planning, setting up everything that need.
Wow.
Plus, I have also to plan for. I'm receiving 2 documentary journalists Monday to Tuesday, so I think I should
Hmm.
prepare a little bit for that. They're coming up to do a documentary
Maybe.
about medical training.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those 2 things, yeah. Embrace the challenge of do my project. Mhm.
That's quite a chunk of things to do. That's yeah. Wow. Good for you.
And a lot of
Uh,
training of.
but you teed this up very nicely because that backdrop of what you just said about Pakistan and Afghanistan and leading the first Afghani woman to the top of the highest summit there, that just opens the door very neatly for this question. And
Mhm.
answer this however you want and start it wherever you want. But
Mm.
what is your story? What is the story of Vibi? Because you are fascinating. And I would love for you to unpack who you are and how you've gotten here because God, this is exciting. I'm ready for this one. So over to you.
Do you have a week?
I would love to, but no, I
No,
don't.
we don't have. Well, I grew up in the southern part of Norway, on a little mountaintop. So my mom had to tie me in a rope in the garden because I was all over the mountains already at that time.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I started out skiing, climbing, scuba diving from an early age, like climbing and skiing from when before I could walk nearly, and then scuba diving as soon as I could do that. And when I was going to try to get a education, I needed to have something that was challenging and
Hmm.
outdoor. I also love animals. So there was like 2 things that I was either I go for veterinary or I go for the military because that was like challenging, but it was like one was with animals, which I love.
Hmm.
I didn't have at that time. I didn't have good enough grades to start on the veterinary education in Norway, and at that time we didn't have any agreement with doing the veterinary training in other countries. So I ended up to go to the military, and some friends of mine because I. There was only one indoor climbing wall in my city, and that was at the military academy. So I got some friends there, and they told me about what it was, and they also advised me to go for the medical corps, because they knew that I always want to help. And I could always get, like, the knowledge that I gained from the medical corps, I could always get use of that in my life. So that was very good advice. And I started in the medical corps, and I'm like, I need to out travel. I'm just like, I need to see the world. I need to go out there and help. So my goal was to get a deployment as soon as possible. And I got that after only 2 years. I was deployed 13 months to Lebanon in an infantry company. And from then on, I have been in and out all the time, because I loved to be out there and really see that I could make a difference.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to go back to a new deployment. So it ended up with being 1 or 2 years in the northern part of Norway, serving for the forces, and then 1 year abroad. So I was in Lebanon, I was in Kosovo, Iraq, Chad, Afghanistan, South Sudan, Syria, Chad. Was a head of a hospital in Chad, actually. Head of 8 ambulances in Kosovo. And then I was with the PSYOPs in Afghanistan. And then I was a military observer on the Golan Heights on the Syrian side in Syria. And then I was also in the military operations center in South Sudan, where I also worked with the Joint Operations Center on a lot of outreach projects. And as I told you, I was always outdoors. So when I had time off, I was out skiing, climbing, so on and so forth. And I needed more and more challenges. And, as I've told you now, I love traveling. So I found out, why don't I go for the 7 summits? That will bring me all around the world, and I can climb. So I thought that was a fantastic idea.
That is a fantastic idea.
I thought so, and it is. It was wonderful, because I every time I go, the goal is not to reach the top. The goal is to embrace every second. Like, I love the cultures, to embrace the animals, the people, the culture, everything what I see along the way. So for me, if I don't reach the summit, it's still a wonderful experience and a wonderful expedition, because I just love the whole trip. And then so I went for to try to go climb the highest mountain on each of the 7 continents. And that includes Mount Everest. But I wanted to be a responsible climber, and that means that I wanted to do the degrees. So I wanted to have other higher mountains before I go on the highest in the whole world.
Right.
So that's why I actually went for climbing this mountain behind me, which is Manaslu. And I went for that as my first 8,000 meter peak. And when I then I was ready to try Everest in 2015. And when I was there on Everest, the earthquake happened. And that was the very, very big earthquake that actually killed 9,000, and you can imagine how many was injured.
This video is courtesy of Outlander.
I am Vibeke Andrea Sefland. I come from the south part of Norway. So I've been working with the Army and United Nations for several years. And with all that knowledge from all my missions abroad, it was, for me, just natural to stay behind when the earthquake happened and work in that disaster with relief work. So I stayed behind for 7 months and did a lot of work for some NGOs and also for World Food Programme. And then I also started my own projects.
Everybody talks about the risk climbing Everest, and yeah, it is a risk climbing Everest, but you have to know about the risks, and you have to know about yourself and how to tackle them. What I see is that many of those who have died up there, they have been to the summit, maybe used too much time, and then they are out of oxygen, and they sit down because of exhaustion, and then they freeze to death. The equipment is so important, to have good equipment, and also how you dress. It's so important to have good quality on everything that you wear, and all the layers. I always have wool underwear. That means my bra and my boxer, no matter how warm it is outside. And then when I go further up, I use the net wool. It's so perfect because you can have them underneath only like a wind shell, and it still keeps you warm, and it ventilates very good too. The feeling of reaching the summit, a little bit different from Lhotse and Everest, because on Lhotse it was perfect weather, so that was just joy and happiness and full of energy and enjoying the view, which is so amazing. And to reach Everest in a force 10 storm, exhausted of course, but also to reach the summit gives me energy. And to then see this view from the top of the world is fantastic, but still I am still focused. So it's kind of a mix between, oh, it's fantastic, but I'm focused on getting safe down.
So when I was between Camp 1 and Camp 2 on Everest, approximately around 6,000 meters, the earthquake happened. It was in the middle of the day on a Saturday, luckily, because Saturday is the only day in the week that the children are not in school. And you should have seen all the schools were totally flat. So you can imagine if they were filled with children. I mean, it was awful. And of course we had to just stop all expeditions. It was like the big earthquake on the 25th of April. It was another big one on the 26th. I was stuck at the other side of Khumbu Icefall, so we had to wait for helicopters to evacuate us down to base camp. But of course the helicopters, they were used for evacuation of patients. So we waited for a couple of days. When I then came back to base camp, everything was flat. Everything was destroyed. And all the others, locals, the Nepalis who work for us in the kitchen and with the carrying things, they didn't even know if their family was alive. So I could, of course, use my satellite phone and call home and say, I'm okay. And they could use my satellite phone, but the whole telephone net was just down. So they could not reach anyone at the other side. So for me, then, it was very important to help them to clean up base camp, get ready to go home as soon as possible, and check if the wife was alive, if their children was alive, if the house was still standing.
Right.
So I stayed behind in base camp. So I'm telling a lot about this happening because you know how it's said, you need to be shaken to wake up to see your purpose in life. And I think the earth was that for me. So
literally, yeah.
he was literally shaken to wake up and see, what can I do in life? And for me, it was natural because of also all my deployments to areas where I had worked in harsh conditions. I saw and I understood that I can be of help. So I asked the forces if I could have leave without pay. And I got 1 year extra. So I stayed 1.5 years in Nepal and helped to rebuild Nepal. Yeah, that was an amazing experience. That was really, I got friends from all corners of the world, and all of them were there at the same purpose. They wanted to do the best to help rebuild Nepal.
I'm going to interrupt and say, yes, I'm sure an amazing experience, but also what an amazing heart and an amazing decision, because life is choices, and to choose something like that, that's who I know you to be. But that comes through a lot of just reflection and, like you said, trying to tap into your purpose and just, I think, a heart for other people. And yeah, in the heart of discussing Zest, really trying to live your life to the fullest. And when you feel passionately called to something, you just go all in. So I just want to recognize you're just sort of going through this beautifully but quickly. But that's the place that we can put a pin in it just for a second and say, that's a huge decision that not a lot of people would even have the ability or maybe even the capacity to make. So
Yeah, but that thing
yeah.
is because I saw so many climbers, or not even climbers, trekkings, tourists, whatever. They were just like, "Oh my God, I'm out of here! It's a catastrophe! I need to flee the country." And then you saw other people. They came in to help, and it was nearly at the same time as we had this refugee crisis. I think many of us remember that little baby that was found on a beach in. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe it was Greece. There was like a dead body of a baby that was found on one of the beaches because of refugees out on boats in the Mediterranean.
Yeah.
And you had this big refugee crisis where people came from Syria, a lot from Syria at that time. And people were asking me, how can I contribute? Because they tried to contact Red Cross and Norwegian Refugee Council, big organizations, and they say you don't have the courses that we requires. And that I can understand because there's a big organization, they need to have insurance proper, and so on and
Right.
so forth. So I can totally understand that, but I can also understand all of those people who wanted to contribute. And they said, how can we do that? Can you give us some advice? And like I always say, pick the crisis, pick wherever you want to help, fly out there or take the boat or whatever you need to take. If that is a village in Greece, for instance, then you go there and you will always find a restaurant or a coffee shop where international people gather. I can guarantee you, you will find so many post-its or notes that says we need people to help with children, with building, with animals, with whatever. You just pick whatever, take that, try it, and just start helping. It's easy as that. And also, as I said, because people can be maybe they don't want to travel out of their country. Well, they can contribute with marketing, they can contribute with fundraising. We can
Right.
all do a little bit. Like I always say, if you think you are too small to make a difference, you have never tried to fall asleep with a mosquito in the room. That mosquito is really,
Oh, I love that.
it is so annoying. That little mosquito that keeps you awake. Be that little mosquito. We can all be that little mosquito. Be,
That's so good.
if it's just is to smile to someone and say, I recognize you with a smile. That actually, when I had a motivational talk some years back, and there was one girl. She came up to me and she told me a very touching story. She said a good friend of her, he was suicidal. He was on his way to jump from a bridge, and then it was one person that came towards him, just passing him. But that person, he didn't know that person, looked him into the eyes, really saw him, and just said, "Hello, I wish you a wonderful day." That saved his life.
Yeah, that's so good because it doesn't always take much, and it definitely, I don't think, takes as much as we dream it up to be to really make an impact for others. And I love that your ability and your presence to just meet people where they are at. And that's just such a beautiful thing to highlight. Whatever you are able to do, whether it's physically or financially, or just even a smile and an encouragement,
Yeah.
Most people have the ability to get on a telephone or a computer or record a note
Yeah.
or something to send encouragement. And
We
even
can all,
that small act, and I say small because it's really not small. Like you just said, it could be
it
the
could be like,
difference in life or death for some people. A
yeah.
simple act of kindness. So your story is, and I know that's not all there is to it, but even so far, it's almost breathtaking to be like, oh my God. But I think it's a compilation of a lifetime of a little girl that was in southern Norway who loved to be active, probably had a little bit of a rebellious streak that didn't like to be told no, and had a fire in your belly to just live your life to the fullest.
Yeah.
And as you've gotten older and experienced more, it just sounds like you really pressed into that challenge to take all of those gifts and use them to help other people be their best. And
Oh,
it's just, and it's beautiful to hear that, because I feel like in that process, with your focus on that, it's really elevated your fulfillment in life and really given you that extra zest. But I love something you said when you were talking about the earthquake on Everest. And this is really meaningful to me because I think both of us in the positions we're in with our lives, because we talked about this the other day. Yes, we're in the military and we love our service. I'm still in the Marine Corps after 23 years. You're still in the Norwegian Army after quite a few years as well. We've both put in some time through a lot of deployments, a lot of different positions. You, like I was, were a former non-commissioned officer and then became a major. I remember all these talks that we've had over the course of our time. So we've really poured our lives, our adulthood, into this occupation of a life of service and a service to our country and to others. And that's great. And if others don't do that, that's fine. But I love that our paths did cross through that.
Yeah.
But I think even more meaningful have been the conversations about our different passion projects, if you will,
Yeah.
that are maybe a slight step outside of the military. So you, through being a mountain guide and your humanitarian work, which I do want you to unpack some of that more. And then me for the different things like I do here with the coaching. When you said, like life needs to shake you for you to really find your purpose. And for me, that moment, I know I shared this with you and I don't say it often, but it's very interesting. I just recently recorded a testimonial for the College of Executive Coaching, who I went through for all of my coaching certifications for international credentials and so on and so forth. And they said, hey, you've done a lot of really good things. We really appreciate your partnership. Would you mind recording something to just tell people about your experience? And I thought long and hard before I recorded that of what narrative do I want to tell? Because I really feel like this is my purpose, is to help coach people, make a space even through this podcast where we can have conversations where people connect with other people and they just are filled with some good virtues in life that are actually useful through good stories. So storytelling is the best way to connect. And I was like, dude, you've got to tell your story. Like, don't hold it back. And I did, but the short snapshot of that was, okay, yep, have this background growing up in the military, come from a loving family, so on and so forth. But the thing that shook me after deployments and after losing friends through some of those combat deployments, yes, that's hard. The thing that really shook me was in 2010 when my dad committed suicide. And that, in a positive way, completely shifted the trajectory of what I sort of committed my life and my heart and all of my learning and practice into doing. And so then I got my master's in developmental psychology because I was really interested in like the behavioral sciences and helping understand people and sort of maybe the root causes of how people grow and develop and some issues that come into that. And it's just been a really interesting journey. Then beginning of last year, I started my PhD in organizational psychology. So then, okay, cool. I'm understanding how people are developing and behaving. And then I wanted to branch that out into like teams and organizations and cultures and get a broader, maybe cultural perspective on that. And through that journey, I was like, I really enjoy this coaching concept from maybe a psychology perspective. So trying to couple my educational pursuits and my passion for learning, that sort of thing, with just the ability to really meet people where they're at, whoever they are, wherever they are, just meet them there and try and help navigate and calmly guide them through both difficulties and opportunities, and help them really unpack, like you said, what is their purpose? Where can they really find the most fulfillment from the life that they've been gifted with the gifts of their own self?
Yeah.
And it's such a cool journey. But much like your earthquake and something that was tragic, I would not be where I am today without that truly traumatic experience of losing. He was my best friend, and that was devastating. But you're stuck in that moment, I feel, with a choice. So what are you going to do about it? And I love how when other people are maybe fleeing Nepal, you're the type of person you're running to the sound of the gunfire. You're running into the conflict. You're like, you're in hell? Cool. I'm going to walk through some hell with you then. And I love that heart, because I really think it's the most meaningful thing we can do is help people at their lowest and really connect with them there. Because to me, at least, and what I hear from you and what I know of you for a few years of friendship now, that is your heart, is you are just so gracious and present with everyone. And you always share a smile. You always share a story. And it's not just a feel good thing, but man, when you walk away from an encounter with Vibi, it feels good. It's like, I feel good about my life. And that's such a gift. So I had to inject there because I really appreciated your comment about your purpose becomes alive when your life is sort of shaken up. And that is so true. So I would just, before we continue with your story and with the other questions, really encourage the listeners, whatever the hell you may be going through, keep on going. And I promise you, with me and Vibi, you have a friend, so you can reach out to us. You can reach out to me, but there is always someone who's willing to walk through it with you and meet you there. And your choice in the midst of all of that can really mean a fulfilling, meaningful life on the other side of it. So I'm really thankful that you shared that. That's cool.
Yeah, and of course I also have some days when I'm down. But what I feel,
of course,
I'm really sad or have a difficult time, what makes the world better for me is that I try to find people who have worse situation, and then I can help them, that I feel better.
Yeah. That's okay.
It's a very good tactic to go
It
help
is.
someone. I had, bless her, she passed away, 96 years old, my old aunt. And of course, the last years, she needed a lot of help. And when I felt down, I always went to her. I could just do some small things for her, talk with her. And then I felt so much better. Just go to someone who needs help and help them. You feel so much better. Just like,
Yeah.
when you feel down, go and help someone else.
Yeah. Well, it's so true, but simply, it's just, in my mind, it's because it helps you appreciate all of the gifts and the blessings that you actually have that you might take for granted.
Yeah.
Much like if you have a sore throat and you never think about it, but then you get really sick and you have a sore throat and you're like, God, this is terrible. And as soon as it's gone, you're like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have a sore throat anymore.
Yeah.
Well, why aren't you thankful for your health every day? Like all the days you don't have a sore throat, you could be thankful for that. That's cool. So,
Yeah.
that's a great perspective. So yeah, you mentioned some of the humanitarian aid. So can you just give us a quick plug for how you're engaged with that and what that looks like for you now?
Yeah, so I stayed behind, as I said, I stayed behind in Nepal for 1.5 years. And of course, then I got friends and family. I got Nepali family there, and I started a lot of projects. So I started 3 orphanage. One was a drop-in center for street children, because we saw that the amount of street children rose a lot after the earthquake. They lost their parents, or they couldn't find them, and so on and so forth. Many of them uh, started drinking and abusing the children. They ran away, and many sad stories. So I started a drop-in center where they could have a safe haven, a bed to sleep, and a hot meal. And unfortunately, many of them, they were sniffing glue at the street. And when they were ready to go off the glue sniffing, I placed them, and I started a girls' home and a boys' home. And then they started school. So I started in all kind of 3 orphanage. The drop-in center it's now used for anymore, so that's closed down. And the girls' orphanage is taken over by a Swedish organization called We Care, and I still have my boys. So I'm still running the boys' home. And I also got involved. I actually started together with 2 girls. Or I mean, the 2 girls, they were 14 and 15. They had run away from forced marriage in the south of Nepal and had started their own little. They had 2 sewing machines, and they tried to sew some small things for the tourists, making some small bracelets and selling to the tourists. And I asked them because after some time, when I had been out building health posts, like small medical kind of small clinics out in the rural area, we call them health posts. I had built a lot of them. I had built some schools, like 6 schools in rural areas.
Wow.
We covered some 900 students. The health posts covered an area of 20,000 people. So I managed to set up some, like those 6 schools of them, 4 of them are still running. And this was in 2016.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, it's good. It's very nice. But when I was out there, I saw that girls are dropping out of school when they get their menstruation. So when they get their period, they drop out of school. And why so? Because they don't have sanitary pads. So when you then have to drop school for 1 week every month, they just like, what's the use? So they drop out of school. And I asked the 2 girls if they could make reusable sanitary pads for me. And yeah, they could. They have heard about it before, and they started producing reusable sanitary pads for me. And we started to have massive like Operation Sanitary Pad.
Yeah.
So we had agreements with schools in rural areas. We came out there, delivered out together with also education in hygiene. And from just being 2 girls with 2 sewing machines, we have now expanded to 2 different units with 97 women or girls from broken background. So it's
wow.
not like a factory that and I, of course, I always have this philosophy that no one should be dependent of me. If I die tomorrow, this factory should still go. If I die tomorrow, the orphanage should still be running. So I always set it up so they can actually manage it themselves. So this factory is run by the 2 girls, and I have teach them every time I'm there. I teach them how to develop. Like for instance, in the start, of course, I funded a lot of it in the start, but then I teach them how they can start funding themselves, and also by I call it taking advantage of tourists that want to help them. Like for instance, I told them, if you get a tourist that is a information manager or a computer like a computer skilled person, help them, make them help you set up a web shop. Make them help you to make your web page. So I've taught them to connect skilled people to them. So now they have a web shop. They have things are running. They're very eager to manage it themselves. So now I'm just a supervisor, and everything is running well.
You know what I love about this is there's so many common threads that in our different pursuits that we share, but a lot of where my heart is and people that I really feel drawn to is people who want to both build and restore communities and cultures and lives. And listening to that, whether it's teaching them how to do it themselves, maybe building it, or if there's been damage or hurt or trauma or just destruction in something, you go and can help rebuild and restore that. And I mean, that's the whole premise behind the name of what I do for coaching, because my father worked construction his whole life. So this idea isn't original to me. The foundational coaching with a hammer and the mortar trowel and the symbol that you see over my shoulder, all of that was a tip of the hat to what I grew up doing and watching and observing and learning with and from my dad, because he just worked building things his whole life, and that was his job, and he loved it, and he was really good. But I learned so much value about, yeah, sure, building things and learning how to work with my hands, but there's such an analogy or a connection there to people and how you can really help them with their life or with their communities. You can, like you said, you can teach them to build something from scratch, but then also, like, how can you maintain this structure that you've built? Or if it starts to break down, like, you aren't the foundation of it, because if you go away, the whole thing crumbles. So you really are teaching them that their community and their connections are the foundation to build off of. And you helped a lot, but if you step away, the whole thing doesn't crumble down on them. And that's the way that my mind visualizes it, is you're just the architect, you're the designer, you're the champion of it, but it's so thoughtful to make sure that when you step out, it doesn't crumble.
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's so thoughtful.
It's so important to me, because I don't know how much time I have here on this planet Earth. So I just have most of the time that I have. And like, for instance, I told you I was working in the outreach project for Joint Operations Center in South Sudan, in Juba. And then we tried to make much more stable in the villages that was close to our camp, because that makes it more safe for us in the camp.
Right.
So we went out there and started a school, primary school, and also we were drilling some wells. And I saw that the women, they were fighting a lot. So I was like, why? So I started just like talking groups. I gathered all the women, and we just sat down and talked. And I asked them, what are your skills? And they said, we don't have any skills. I was like, what do you know? We don't know anything. It's like, come on, you're making me the best coffee I've ever tasted.
Yeah.
But that's just what we're doing. So it's like, okay, but you know how to make really good coffee. And then I said, okay, so I can now start something. I buy like a start package of coffee beans. And then you roast them and pack them, and we sell them in the UN camp. So then we started the Coffee Lady factory. but that was just like, I just started. I of course I started with this the first package of beans. And then and package material like plastic bags and things like that. And then I made sure for an access into the camp to sell. And then I taught them how to not, we call it eat everything on one day. That means they have to set aside some money so they can buy a new lot of beans. So just to that first amount of beans that I gave them. And then afterwards, the access to camp, and then the education in how to save a little bit of money so they can buy for the next time. That was the only thing. And then he was running. So that it's just some small things that I see, okay, with a little bit of talking, and then there were some others. Oh, we would love to learn how to use a sewing machine. Easy for me to start. Okay, let's buy 6 sewing machines, and then I was at the in the camp. We had a tailor coming every week, and she was very skilled. So I asked her, "Are you interested in teaching them?" Oh yes. So then we started 2 tailor schools in 2 different small villages. And that has, just with these 6 sewing machines, 3 in each of the villages, they have no educated, I don't know how many tailors. And now they are actually managing to sell small things that they make themselves. And also, like, because with education, I told them, you have to set aside a little bit of money so that you can repair the sewing machine, because it will break.
Yeah.
So just a little bit of education and a little bit of you have to do some research in, like I asked them, what can you do? What do you want to do? So you have to do some research. What is actually good in this area, in this culture? So you have to also look at the culture. What can work and not work. So you have to learn the society and the culture and what will actually work in this area before you start. But then I can leave it. So now it's running by itself.
And I'm going to throw us back towards the beginning of this episode. The second question I asked you after I said introduce yourself. I said, what are you thankful for and what are you learning? And you said that you're learning, generalizing what you said, you're learning how to listen to people and to learn from other people with different perspectives, whether you agree with them or not. And that skill, I think, has really empowered you to be sort of the visionary or the entrepreneur or just the servant of these people's skills. Because like you said, if you step into a culture, you might have all of the best intentions in the world, but if you don't listen and observe and maybe do your homework on what actually could benefit them, then you might have the most meaningful heart, but you might miss the opportunity because it doesn't actually work for them, whether it's their culture or their geographic location or the soil can't grow this crop. Or so to actually plug into a community and just close your mouth and open your ears and open your eyes and your heart and say, I need to learn these people. I really want to help them. So all these little stories will not get edited out because they're such a beautiful picture and story of who you are as a person. Like, it does not fall on deaf ears to me that all of these little things are like, oh, we did this, and there were a couple schools, and then there was this. All of that's a big deal. But I think more impressive to me is your capacity in that space to really influence sustainable, positive change for these people, because you just shut up and listen and serve them, not what you think is best, but what they actually need. And that is so difficult. Like, that's a gift.
It's really important. I heard a colleague of mine, she had been working for the United Nations in a different mission. And she told me that they had been drilling wells because they saw that the women, they had to walk for, I think it was like 3 hours or something to get to the well to get water. So they said, oh, we can drill a well in this village. And every time, like, they drilled the well and it got damaged. And it's like, how could this be? Every time they repaired it, it got damaged. It's like, why? The reason was that they managed to find out after a while. The women wanted the time off to go blah, 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 chatting for those 3 hours back and forth.
Oh my God.
We really need to dig into the culture and try to find out what will actually help in this area.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have the next question for you. When you hear the word zest, what's the first thing that races to your mind?
I would think positive energy.
That's really good.
That can fuel everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that. That's so much what you've been talking about. Why does that come to your mind first? How does that connect with it?
I think that, like I said, that's the fuel. Like, if you have positive energy, and you that also gives like a fuel to others. So it's like, people maybe call it the good karma. It's something about the aura around you, and if that is like a positive energy, you spread that to the world around you, and that actually reflects back. So you're fueled again, double up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Double it up. Everybody, double up your positive energy. This lady will help you, but you need to figure it out for yourself too, a little bit. Yeah. Rock and roll. Okay. I'm going to end with this question, and then after this, I'll turn it over to you for any final thoughts. But this is really cool, because this question, actually, I do this sometimes in coaching sessions as well. But after I had the session with Elizabeth, and of course she's on my heart and mind a lot this week, but she said, hey, I loved the question that you asked me at the end of my session when we were sitting down together. And she said, I have a really cool thing that maybe you could ask your guests. And now that she mentioned this to me and now that she's gone, I'm always going to ask this question in her honor, but it's a good one. It's really good. If you left, I know, don't get nervous. It's fine. You'll do great, but it's such a good question. So thank you, Elizabeth. We love you.
Yeah,
if you left this podcast and stepped away from it and said to yourself, I wish Josh or one of the listeners would have asked me this question, what would that question be and how would you respond?
Oh, I would have loved you to ask me what quote I live by and the words that, and then I would love to.
Vibi, what quote do you live by?
Yes.
I asked you, there you go.
Yeah. I try to live by the words of Nelson Mandela, and that is, there is no passion in life settling for a life that is less than the one you are capable of living. So be that little mosquito. You are capable of being a little mosquito. No, so we have, no, there is no passion to be found settling for a life that is less than the one we are capable of living. Yeah.
That's powerful. And you know what? I think when I hear, and I mean this sincerely, you know me, I'm a straight shooter and I don't blow smoke. I don't just say things to flatter people. But when I hear names of incredibly powerful people who stood in the face of adversity or really were just genuine lovers of all people, regardless of creed, skin color, race, sex, religion, they just love people with their heart. I think of people like Nelson Mandela or Martin Luther King, who we just celebrated Martin Luther King Day in the US over this past week. And there's so many powerhouse people that were about people. And that was it. That was their life. And I think to a lot of people that is you, but I can guarantee you, to me, when I think of those sorts of people, like you are swinging at that weight class to me. Like when I think of Vibi, that is the type of person that I look at you to be. And I mean that sincerely, because the things you've shared in this episode, none of them are a small feat. And this isn't to play a comparison trap game where, and I know you wouldn't want that for people, like just because you may not have the gifts or the capacity to do the certain things. And a lot of that is a gifting through who you've been, through your military career, places that's taken you. So both you and I are very blessed to have the ability to do anything and everything that we've experienced so far. But regardless of people's skill or abilities or disabilities, if they are still breathing oxygen and they still have a life, I am 100% convinced that they can live a full, an abundant, and a meaningful life when they actually connect that to their true purpose and when they actually make people first and always the cornerstone of all of their efforts. And then once they have success, when they point it back to that and say, it was just the people that I was with and it was the people that I was for. And that's who I think of you to be. That's what I think of with you. And I couldn't think of a better person for Zest because it just oozes out of you. Your aura is very rock and roll. And I have to tell you, my daughters, when we chatted the other day and Aria was in here, she's such a studious little girl. She was sitting on my little Kelty camping couch that's in my office here to the side because they like to come in and sit and just, hang out with me and chill if I'm doing things.
Yeah.
And when she came over, once we signed off and quit talking, she was like, Dad, can I get hair like hers? She has the coolest braids. She said, can I shave the side of my head and braid it? I was like, dude, if you want to do it, rock on. I love it. She was like, she said, maybe I could do that. And then I could dye my hair orange. And I'm like, I'm totally here for it, dude. Let's go. But she was like, she's so cool. And then she was like, and then can you ask her, when are we going to go to her cabin? I said, we're already going to figure that out. So, yes. But to watch you connect with such a sweet little girl. And you can't trick little kids. Like if a little kid doesn't enjoy talking to you, they're just going to walk away. But you were so captivating to even just the most precious person to me, my little daughter. And she was just enthralled with Vibi. Cool hair. She lives in the mountains. She climbs mountains. She's so strong. She helps women. But and I'm like, man, what a role model for such a little beautiful
Oh,
girl.
thank
So
you so much.
that
That's
the
so
as a
sweet.
person to person, the fact that you can connect with my daughter like that and just leave something memorable to such a beautiful small child, to the next generation of
Yeah.
Vibis. Because hey, those Murano girls are going to be game changers. That's just who they are. Like they're
Oh,
powerhouses. But it's just beautiful that I have friends and connections like you that can set such a cool example for my daughters. Where they don't have to listen to their old man. They can just look at some other people I know and go like, yeah, they're pretty rad. I want to be like her. So
oh,
thank you for that.
thank you so much. Thank you for those kind words.
Of course. But before I close this out, I'm going to hand it over to you for any last thoughts or reflections or just things you would like to share with our guests and our listeners.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here and to talk with you. It's always so nice to connect with you. And then let us just encourage everyone to be that little mosquito, huh?
Oh, I love it. Be the mosquito.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming. I always have to close it out this way and just tell people that I'm so thankful for the people that joined. I'm so thankful for the listeners now or in the future or whenever, but it's never about followers or listeners or whatever. I hope to leave something meaningful, but this is always for my wife and my little girls. It is about the legacy and things I can leave behind for them because life is short. We don't know when our next breath or our next day will be. And I get so much joy in just doing this on this platform with people that I love and respect that can talk about meaningful things because for Laura and for Aria and Alessia and Karina, I love you all so dearly and endlessly. And everything we do, and even everything Vibi does, is for you and for people like you, and to hopefully encourage you and tell you that we love you. So you girls are going to shake the earth with your gifts and your passion. And I'm confident, Vibi, that with someone like you, man, it's impossible to step away from this and not be inspired. We can't wait to spend the time with you.
Oh,
Enjoy your
thank
weekend. So proud of you. Thanks for
you.
joining us. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Off the Hinges. Don't forget to follow Foundational Coaching on your favorite social media platforms. Kick off your Saturday with me tomorrow morning at Coffee and Reflections on Substack, where I'll share my reflections and stories on the weekly virtue. I'm honored to be a part of your story today, and I'm proud of your growth, my friend. I can't wait for our next time together, exploring the vault.